Hello learners, welcome back to my channel Shraddha's Physics. In this part we will discuss about optical pumping or the pumping mechanism basically, that is the pumping mechanism for the population inversion. That after we will discuss about the level ledger or that is the Ruby ledger. And in the next lecture we will discuss about the helium neon ledger or that is the 4-level ledger. Since we have already discussed about the spontaneous emission, stimulated emission as well as the stimulated absorption, let me again tell you, this is your suppose E1 state and this is suppose E2 state. Within a few seconds I will tell you what are this in short: stimulated absorption, stimulated emission as well as spontaneous emission. Okay, this is suppose my ground state and this one is suppose excited state. So when an atom is present in the ground state, that is at the ordinary temperature, and suppose we are supplying some amount of energy, that is your additional amount of energy, or we may say that a photon of energy h nu, when it falls on this atom E1, then it will get excited and it will goes to the higher state, that is your E2 state. Okay. So this process is actually called the pumping. Okay, the pumping means, so this is the method by which we are giving some additional energy so that we can raise this particle from the lower state to the higher state. Okay. So this process is called as the stimulated absorption. So this is called the stimulated absorption and the method is called the pumping method. Okay. Now the atom is already present in the higher state. Suppose the atom is present at this point. Since here the lifetime of the excited state is just about 10 power minus 8 seconds, so it cannot stay for a more time. It cannot stay for more time here. Now it will jump to the lower state or that is your ground state by radiating some amount of energy, that is your Hν. Okay. And this method is known as the spontaneous emission. Okay, this is your spontaneous emission. Because here spontaneously the atom will jump to the highest state to the lowest state by emitting the radiation of amount of energy, that is your Hν. And also there will be the another process by which the emission can be done. Suppose here I will draw, let me draw, this is your E1 state and this one is your suppose E2 state. The atom is already present in the suppose higher state, that is your E2 state, that is your excited state. Here I am supplying some amount of energy, that is Hν, of photon of energy Hν. If it falls on this atom, then it will jump to the lower state, that is your E1 state. This one is your E2 and this one is your E1. It will jump to the lower state E1 by emitting the amount of energy, that is Hν with one other Hν. Since here you can see the energy difference between the two energy levels is your Hν. So one Hν, when it will falls to the or when it will jump to the lower state, it will emit the amount of radiation Hν, as well as since it absorbed this amount of energy, so again it will also emit another Hν amount of energy. Okay, so this process is called as the stimulated emission. Stimulated word is used because here we are getting stimulating, or we can say that we are stimulating that atom so that the radiation will occur. Okay, now we will see the pumping mechanism of the population inversion. Okay, so here what is the population inversion? Population inversion basically means, here I am considering for a single atom. Okay, if there are large number of atoms are present, okay, if there are large number of atoms are present, then what will happen? The amount of energy that is we are supplying here, so here it may be more amount of energy we have to supply, and also here a large number of atoms suppose are present in the ground state. Okay, so that after absorbing such amount of energy, so that every atoms that are present in the ground state, they will lie in the higher state. So they will goes to the higher state, so that at a particular time we can say when the number of atoms present in the E2 state will be more than that of your E1 state. In that case we can say that the population inversion will occur. So population inversion means the higher level it contains more number of atoms as compared to the lower level. Okay, so now let us see here pumping mechanism of the population inversion. So a system in which the population inversion is achieved is called as an active system. Okay, so when a system is in which population inversion is achieved, that is called the active system. And the method of raising the particles from the lower energy state to the higher energy state, that is called pumping. Okay, or the process of achieving population inversion is called pumping. This can be done in a number of ways. So here we will see what are the method of achieving population inversion. So there are different pumping process. So first of all, one is optical pumping. So here, as the name here, optical, so it is related to the light. So when the excitation, so basically pumping means the process in which we can raise the particle from the lowest state to the highest state. Okay, so here this excitation is being done by the use of the light. Okay, so that's why its name is optical pumping. Now the examples are ruby laser, neodymium, this is your neodymium, this is your yttrium, aluminium, garnet laser. Okay, and this is your neodymium glass laser. Another process is your electrical discharge pumping. So here electrical discharge pumping, this excitation is done by the electron impact. Okay, so the examples are helium neon laser, carbon dioxide laser, argon ion laser, etc. Next is your chemical pumping. So here the excitation is done by the chemical reaction, and the examples are HF and DF laser. Then the next one is called the injection current pumping. Okay, or this is known as gas dynamic pumping. So here the excitation is done by the supersonic gas expansion. So here the example are indium phosphorus laser, gallium arsenic laser, and this type of laser is also known as the semiconductor laser. So basically we can say that for a laser action we need population inversion, that is the higher state must contain the maximum number of atoms as compared to the ground state or the lower state. So because to achieve the population inversion, we need to raise the particles from the lowest state to the highest state, or we can say that we will use the process of pumping process, or we will use pumping process. Okay, it may be your optical pumping, it may be your electrical discharge method of pumping, it may be chemical pumping, or it may be gas dynamic pumping. Okay, so as the name of the laser is, that is your, the laser is the abbreviation of light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation. This is your light amplification, A for amplification, light amplification by, S stands for stimulated, we need stimulation, stimulated. E stands for emission, stimulated emission of, R stands for radiation. So this is your abbreviation for the laser. Okay, so the laser medium, it can be a solid, gas, liquid, or semiconductor. And the lasers are commonly designated by the type of lasing material employed, that is it may be solid state laser, gas laser, excimer laser, DIY laser, semiconductor lasers. Okay, solid state, gas laser, excimer laser, dye laser, or semiconductor lasers. Now here we will see what is a ruby laser. Okay, first of all, it is a 3-level solid state laser. Okay, this is the most important thing. It is a 3-level laser and it is a solid state laser, and it was constructed by Menman in 1960. Okay, this ruby is basically a rod. Let me show you first the diagram. This is your ruby laser. This one is more clear. Okay, you can see here. This part is your called the ruby rod. This one is called your ruby rod. Okay, and I will tell you about this color of this ruby rod. I will discuss it. Basically this is your ruby laser. I will discuss it more. Let me first tell you. Okay, here you can see this ruby rod, that is, it is the combination of Al2O3 plus chromium oxide. Okay, this is your aluminum oxide and this is your chromium oxide. So this is a crystal of aluminum oxide in which 0.05% of aluminum plus 3 ions, these are replaced by the chromium plus 3 ions. Okay, so this ruby rod, so the ruby rod at the central part of that ledger, this is your the combination of aluminum oxide as well as the chromium oxide. Okay, so in this case the aluminum ion, it will be replaced by the chromium ions. So the color of the rod is pink and the active medium in the ruby rod is chromium ions. So which one is the active medium? So active medium in case of the ruby rod will be chromium ions. Suppose I will tell you, suppose let me just a minute, I will tell you just a minute. Yes, suppose this is your ruby rod, this is your red color basically, slight pink or red. Okay, this is your suppose ruby rod. Okay, this it contains Al2O3. I will tell you the exactly construction and the working procedure. Now just I am going to tell you what is the active medium, why it is called the active medium, etc. So here it contains the aluminum oxide. When this atom, that is your this molecule Al2O3 gets splitted or they will get separated, then the aluminum plus 3 ions will form, and this aluminum plus 3 ion, they will get replaced by the chromium ions. So here this Cr plus 3 ions now will present in this state, that is your chromium plus 3 ion, they will be available in this rod, that is your in this ruby rod. So it depends on the number of chromium ions or the concentration of the chromium ions present in this ruby rod. So the color will be dark or slightly red, or that is your pink color. So this is because of the chromium ion. That is, the more the concentration of the chromium ion present in this ruby rod, so the color will be red. The less amount of the or the concentration, when it will be less, so then the color will changes to the pink. Okay, now why this is called the active medium? Here I have written the active medium in the ruby rod is called the chromium ions. Why? Because just I have told you that a system in which the population inversion is achieved, that is called the active system. Okay, so here I will show you the population inversion will be achieved. This is just because of the chromium ions. So this is called the active medium in case of the ruby rod. So here, depending on the concentration of the chromium ions, the ruby rod give the transparent crystal, a pink or the red color. Now let us see the construction of the ruby rod. So in ruby ledger, the length is basically 4 centimeter and 5 millimeter in diameter. So the basic difference you can see here, the diameter is very small as compared to that of the length. Okay, both the ends of the rods are highly polished. So here you can see, this is your ruby rod, these are the two ends are highly polished. Okay, and made strictly parallel, and the ends are silver mirror in such a way that one becomes partially reflected and other ends becomes fully reflected. So here in this diagram you can see, this is your ruby rod, this part is your fully reflected mirror, and the other side is your half silver mirror, or you can say the partially reflected mirror. Okay, so it forms a resonant cavity. So it will form a resonant cavity. This one, it will form a resonant cavity. The ruby rod is surrounded by this xenon flash tube. So this one is called your xenon flash tube. Okay, let me change the color. So this is your xenon flash tube. This black one, these are your called xenon flash tube. It provides the pumping light to excite the chromium ions into the upper energy level. So here what will happen? When this xenon flash tube, it will get heated, it will excite the chromium ions into the higher level. Now the xenon flash tube, it emits thousands of joules of energy in few milliseconds, but only a part of that energy it is utilized by the chromium ions, while the rest of the energy it will hit of the apparatus. Okay, so here you can see a cooling apparatus. Here is a cooling apparatus. It is provided to keep the experimental setup at the normal temperature. Okay, Now we will see the working procedure. So now we will see what will happen inside this Ruby ledger. So initially the chromium ions, they will present in the lower state, that is in your ground state. Okay. So when it will absorb the wavelength of 5600 angstrom, so this much of wavelength of light, when it will get absorbed, then it will goes to the highest state. Okay. So this is the method of optical pumping, because when this xenon flash tube get heated, it emits thousands joules of energy, but only a small amount of energy it will be used by the chromium ions. Okay. So by here absorbing certain amount of energy, here the chromium ion, it will goes to the upper state, that is suppose your E3 state. Okay. And this is called the optical pumping transition. Now the excited chromium ion, it will stay here for the very short time, that is your 10 power minus 8 second. Okay, this is your E3 energy state and this one is your E1 state. So by absorbing such amount of energy, it will goes to this state, that is where it will live for only 10 power minus 8 second. So after their lifetime, most of the chromium ions, they will get de-excited and they will jump from the E3 state to the E1 state directly. And also a few chromium ions, they will de-excited from E3 state to the E2 state. Okay. And here the transition between this E3 state to, this is your suppose E2 state, this is your intermediate state, or this is your metastable state. So here the lifetime of the atom is 10 power minus 3 second, which is 10 power 5 times more than that of your 10. This is your E3 state. Okay. So here the transition between this E3 state to the E2 state, this is your non-radiative transition. Okay. So the non-radiative transition means the chromium ion, which will get de-excited, it will give their energy to the lattice in the form of the heat. Okay. Now in this metastable state, since its lifetime is more, that is 10 power 5 times that of the E3 state, so here the atom can stay for the more time. But due to the continuous working of this flash lamp, the chromium ions, they will get excited to the E3 state. Okay. But here the lifetime is very short, so they will directly jump to the metastable state. So after the few milliseconds, the level E2 is more populated. Okay. So after some time, the population inversion is achieved in the state, that is your E2 state. But the state of population inversion, it is not a stable one. So the process of spontaneous transition is very high. So now the spontaneous transition will occur. So when the excited chromium ion, they will pass spontaneously from the E2 state to the E1 state, it will emit one photon of wavelength 6943 angstrom. Then this photon, it will be reflected back and forth inside this ruby rod. So it moves parallelly until it stimulates an excited chromium ion. So one side of it is fully silver and other side of it is partially silver. So after reflecting for more and more times, when it will get reflected back and forth, so that an excited chromium ion that is present in the E2 state, it will emit a phase photon of wavelength, that is your same 6943 angstrom, that will be in the same phase. So this process is repeated again and again until the laser beam intensity is reached with sufficiently high value. So here you can see the chromium ions get excited into the higher energy levels by observing 5600 angstrom of wavelength of radiation, and that is called the optical pumping transition. But the excitation chromium ions, it stay in the level E3 for the very short interval of time, that is for your 10 power minus 8 second. And after their lifetime, most of the chromium ions, they will be get de-excited and jump from the E3 state to the E1 state, and a few chromium ions are de-excited from E3 to E2 state. So the transition between E3 and E2, It is the non-radiative transition. So here you can see these are your non-radiative transitions. These transitions are non-radiative. That is, the chromium ions gives their energy to the lattice in the form of heat. So in the metastable state, the lifetime of the chromium ions is 10 power minus 3 seconds. The lifetime of the chromium ions in the metastable state is 10 power 5 times greater than that of the lifetime of the chromium ions in the highest state. So due to this continuous working of the flash lamp, the chromium ions are excited to the higher state E3 and return to the E2 level. So after few milliseconds, the level E2 is more populated than the level E1 and hence the population inversion is achieved. The state of population is not a stable one. So the process of spontaneous transition is very high. When the excited chromium ions possesses spontaneously from E2 state to the E1 state, it emits one photon of wavelength 6943 angstrom, and the photon reflects back and forth by the silver ends and it moves parallel to the axis until it stimulates an excited chromium ion in the E2 state and it emits fresh photon in phase with the earlier photon. So this process is repeated again and again until the laser beam intensity it is reached to a sufficient value. When the photon beam becomes sufficiently intense, it emerges through the partially silver end of the rod. So this is the basic working on the construction of the ruby rod. But one more thing is that the ruby laser it is a pulsed laser, because the duration of the exciting flash of the light it is of the order of millisecond, because due to this flash lamp it will absorb the chromium ions, it will absorb only the few, because we know the general flash tube that is used in case of the ruby laser. So here it will emit the 1000 joules of energy in few milliseconds, but only a very small part of this energy it is used by the chromium ions. So here the duration of the exciting flash of the light it is of the order of a millisecond, but it is intense enough to build up the population inversion very rapidly. So that what will happen, since the flash tube it can emit the 1000 of joules in few milliseconds, so that the chromium ions that are present in the ground state they will raise to the upward state or they will be reached at this E3 state. Okay, but since here the lifetime is very short, that is your 10 power minus 8 second, so they will jump to this state, that is your E2 state. So for a shortened time interval, you can see there will be the maximum number of atoms that will be present in this state, that is your E2, or we can say that basically there will be nothing. There will be not even a single atom present in this ground state, so that it could reach again to the higher state. Okay, so for a shortened time we can say that the total number of atoms or the whole atoms that will be present in this state. Okay, so there will be no more atoms present in this state, so that the flash tube can pump this atom to the higher state. Okay, so what will happen? So as soon as the larger population is produced in the upper level, the laser produces pulse. This stimulated transition it depletes the upper level population more rapidly than it is restored by the flashlight. So the laser action then stops for a few microseconds. In the meantime, the flash lamp again builds up population inversion, producing another pulse. This sequence is repeated, hence a series of pulses is produced until the intensity of the flashlight falls to such a level that it can no longer rebuild the required population inversion. Okay, that is called the spiking in ruby laser. Since all the atoms, that is your n number of atoms, suppose they will be present in this state after some time interval, or we can say that there will be no more atoms they will be available in the ground state, so that when this n number of atoms they will de-excited to the ground state, so they will emit the laser transition. Okay, so in between this time interval, that is for a few microseconds, there will be no atoms will be available in the ground state. So after the laser action again the atom will be available, again they will, after, because of this flash lamp we can say that the atom will get now once again they will get excited to the higher state, and again the laser action comes, the same process repeated. But the gap, that is the, so we can say that for, first of all, if I will say, this is just suppose fast transition when this will happen. So this is suppose one pulse is being seen here, that is for the, this is your fast laser action. So the, at the case of the fast laser action, the maximum number of particles are, they will be available in this state, and there are no atoms in the ground state. But after the laser action, when the atoms are now available in the ground state, again the pumping process will be taken, that is the, again, that is for the second time, the atom will get excited and the same process will happen, and the laser action can be seen. So again, after some time interval, again you will see the laser, that is the laser pulse. So there will be gap between the two pulses. Okay, this is called the spiking in the Ruby laser. So you will see a series of the pulses in the Ruby laser. So what are the drawbacks? This laser requires high pumping power, and the efficiency of the Ruby laser is very small, and it is basically a pulsed laser. Okay, and you will see the, what are the uses of Ruby laser. It is used in the optical photography. It can be used for measurement of plasma properties such as electron density and temperature, and this can be used in the recording of the holograms, and to remove the melanin of the skin it is used, and for the removing hair and tattoo, Ruby lasers are used. Okay, so this is all about your pumping mechanism and the population inversion, and that is your 3-level laser system in case of the Ruby, that is a Ruby laser, and we have already discussed about the spiking in the Ruby laser. This is all for today. Thank you all.